Hello, this is Heather Hoffman, and I'm here today to share another card using the April 2020 Kit of the Month. I'm going to use that lovely little silhouette image of those ladies and then that kind of scripty background stamp set. And I'm going to kind of create a sunset scene with a little bit of an ink blended background and a little bit of texture with some torn paper. So I'm going to start by stamping this main image on a little bit of craft cardstock, just one time just to get a good, nice and dark impression. I'm going to leave that stamp set. I'm cleaning it off because it's going to be a little while till I use it and I didn't want to leave it dirty, but I'm going to leave it mounted there so it's perfectly aligned again. Don't remove that yet because you're going to want to have it there in a little bit. And then I'm going to add some texture by tearing that bottom. I'm going to kind of use that to mimic sand. And it seems a little sad and scary, but I wanted to make sure I had the image centered. So I really wasn't trying to be wasteful with my paper. I just wanted to make sure that image was centered where I wanted it on the page. All right, these are my new Pink & Main ergonomic blending brushes. I really love them for blending backgrounds, but you could use any preferred blending tool, whether it's foam pads or some other form of blending brushes. You could even do a watercolor background for this, and it would be quite lovely as well. I'm just using 3 different shades of orange, and I'm going around, I'm starting with the lightest and just kind of blending around, mainly trying to get kind of that bright image at the bottom, and I laid that on just to make sure I'd covered as far as I wanted, and I noticed I needed to go just a little further down on the sides. And then I can come in with my next color, the next shade darker, and I'm going to kind of just blend up around the edges and come and blend in. And then I can come in with my darkest shade, and it's going to give me kind of an ombre effect. And you notice in the very center there, I left it a little white even, and that's just going to add the brightness of kind of the sun going down on the sunset. So coming around with that darkest shade at the very edges, just blending it in a little bit. And then once that's done, I'm going to add a little bit of texture to that background. I'm going to use that background image that I pulled out from the Kit of the Month. I'm going to turn my background paper there just to protect my work surface, and I'm just going to put that on a clear block, and I'm going to use that same darkest shade of ink that I used before. And I'm just going to kind of stamp it off the edges in 3 different spots, just kind of around that background, just kind of rough and random, nothing too particular, but it's just going to kind of show up soft on that background and kind of be a little bit of interest and texture. All right, now we're ready to stamp that main image on that background. So I'm going to pull out my MISTI where I left everything perfectly aligned before. And now I can go ahead and stamp that image on there again over the top. And I'm going to stamp it twice over my ink blended background just to make sure it's a really good dark and crisp impression. Now I'm going to go ahead and adhere my sand on the bottom. And you notice there's a little bit of a gap where that torn paper is. So I'm going to ink up again, mostly along that bottom, and really just try and stamp in and make sure I fill in that blank spot. So it adds just one full and complete image. But that texture is just kind of fun, how it looks like they're walking on the sand or the ground or whatever. I guess I just like that grounding effect on the image. I thought it was kind of fun. All right. I am going to put that on a white card base, but I actually trimmed a little bit off the bottom there, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment onto my white card base before I adhere that panel. I'm using a sentiment from this same kit as well, and I'm just stamping it in black, keeping it nice and simple. It's going to make that pop nice and straight. Making sure I have that image straight on there so I can stamp it in place. I thought this was a perfect sentiment. Then I can adhere my ink blended panel over the top. I thought about using foam adhesive, but I decided just to adhere it straight in place to make it a little bit easier to pop it in the mail and send it to someone. So it's actually a perfect, I find myself making lots of cards right now that are easy to mail and to send off to friends that you can't go visit. All right, thanks so much for coming by today. I hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.